Imagine spending years preparing for your move to Australia. You've taken English tests, you've had your qualifications assessed, you've saved thousands of dollars, you've built up your points, and you've been waiting patiently for that golden invitation to apply for permanent residency. And then suddenly, overnight, the rules change. The pathways shift. The opportunities you were counting on either expand dramatically or disappear completely. That's exactly what's happening right now in December 2025. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not staying on top of these changes, you could miss out on incredible opportunities or waste precious time pursuing pathways that no longer exist. That's why Aussie Global Affairs exists. To cut through the confusion, to break down the complexity, and to give you clear, actionable information that you can use right now to move your Australian dream forward. Good day, everyone, and welcome to Aussie Global Affairs, your trusted source for the most up-to-date, accurate, and comprehensive immigration news affecting Australia. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with me today on this 9th day of December 2025, because what I'm about to share with you is nothing short of game-changing for anyone who's planning to migrate to Australia, anyone who's already in the application process, or anyone who's simply dreaming of making Australia their new home. We've got breaking news about New South Wales sponsorship changes, we've got fresh results from the latest Visa 189 invitation round, and we've got critical updates that could completely alter your migration strategy. So please, whatever you're doing right now, give me your full attention because every single word in this video could be the difference between success and disappointment in your Australian migration journey. Let's dive straight into the biggest news of the day, and that's the New South Wales State Nomination Program changes that have just been announced. For those of you who aren't familiar, state nomination is one of the most important pathways to Australian permanent residency. Each state and territory has its own nomination program, and if you can secure a state nomination, you get extra points toward your skilled migration visa, which dramatically increases your chances of receiving an invitation to apply. New South Wales, being home to Sydney and being Australia's most populous state, has always been one of the most sought-after state nomination programs. And now, as of this week, they've made significant changes to their requirements, their eligible occupations list, and their priority processing criteria. The first major change in the New South Wales program is the expansion of their priority occupation list. This is huge news for many of you watching right now. New South Wales has added 15 new occupations to their priority list, which means if your occupation is on this new expanded list, you'll receive faster processing, you'll have better chances of nomination, and in some cases, you'll face reduced requirements. The new occupations include several healthcare roles, particularly registered nurses in aged care and disability services, which reflects Australia's desperate need for healthcare workers as the population ages. We're also seeing additions in the technology sector, including cybersecurity specialists, data engineers, and artificial intelligence developers, which shows that New South Wales is positioning itself as Australia's technology hub and wants to attract the best tech talent from around the world. Construction and trades have also been given priority, with occupations like civil engineers, structural engineers, and construction project managers being added to the high-priority list. This reflects the massive infrastructure boom happening across Sydney and regional New South Wales, with billions of dollars being invested in transportation, housing, and public facilities. If you're in any of these fields, this is your moment. The doors are opening wider than they've been in years, and you need to move quickly to take advantage of this opportunity. But here's the catch, and this is where things get complicated. While New South Wales has expanded opportunities for some occupations, they've also tightened requirements for others. Occupations in business administration, marketing, and general management now face higher English language requirements. Instead of the previous requirement of competent English, which is an IELTS score of 6 in each component, these occupations now require proficient English, which means a 7 in each component. That's a significant jump, and for many applicants, it could mean months of additional English study and multiple attempts at the test before they qualify. Additionally, New South Wales has increased the work experience requirements for certain occupations. Previously, many occupations required just 1 year of skilled work experience in the last 3 years. Now, several occupations require a minimum of 3 years of skilled work experience in the last 5 years, with at least 1 year of that experience being in Australia. This is clearly designed to prioritize people who are already in Australia, who have demonstrated their ability to integrate into the Australian workforce, and who have local work experience that employers value. What does this mean for offshore applicants, for people applying from outside Australia? It means your pathway just got harder, but not impossible. If you're offshore and your occupation now requires Australian work experience, you need to start thinking about alternative pathways. Could you come to Australia on a temporary work visa first? Could you pursue a student visa that leads to post-study work rights? Could you look at regional visa options that might have lower requirements? The key is flexibility and being willing to take a longer-term strategic approach rather than expecting a quick direct pathway to permanent residency. Now let's move to the second major update, which is the Visa 189 invitation round results that were just released. For those unfamiliar, the Visa 189 is the Skilled Independent Visa, which is the most desirable visa for many skilled migrants because it doesn't require employer sponsorship and it doesn't require state nomination. It's purely points-based, and if you score high enough, you get invited to apply. The latest invitation round happened just days ago, and the results are fascinating and reveal a lot about the direction Australian immigration is heading. In this latest round, a total of 2,300 invitations were issued. That's actually an increase of 300 invitations compared to the previous round, which suggests that the government is ramping up its skilled migration intake as Australia's economy continues to grow and labor shortages persist across multiple sectors. But here's what really matters: the minimum points required to receive an invitation. For most occupations, the minimum was 90 points, which is extraordinarily high and reflects just how competitive the 189 visa has become. To put that in perspective, getting 90 points typically requires a combination of factors like being under 30 years old, having superior English with an IELTS score of 8 or higher, having at least 8 years of skilled work experience, and having a PhD or other higher qualifications. However, certain high-demand occupations received invitations with lower point scores. Healthcare professionals, particularly registered nurses and medical practitioners, received invitations with as low as 75 points. Engineers in civil, mechanical, and electrical disciplines received invitations at 80 points. And information technology professionals in specific subfields like software engineering and cybersecurity received invitations at 85 points. What this tells us is that while the 189 visa is becoming more competitive overall, if you're in a high-demand occupation, you still have a realistic pathway even without maximum points. The other critical factor in this round was the priority given to applicants who had Australian qualifications or Australian work experience. The data shows that applicants with at least 2 years of Australian work experience were invited at lower point scores compared to offshore applicants in the same occupation. This is part of a broader trend in Australian immigration policy, a preference for people who are already in Australia, who have integrated into Australian society, who have local qualifications and experience, and who have demonstrated their commitment to living and working in Australia long-term. If you're currently in Australia on a temporary visa, this is incredibly important information. Your Australian experience is now more valuable than ever in the points test. Make sure you're maximizing that experience, gathering evidence of your work, maintaining good relationships with employers who can sponsor you if needed, and positioning yourself as someone who's already part of the Australian workforce rather than an unknown quantity from overseas. Now let's talk about the third major update, and this one affects several visa categories. The Department of Home Affairs has announced changes to the English language requirements across multiple skilled visa subclasses. Effective from January 1, 2026, just a few weeks from now, Several visas will require higher English language scores than they currently do. The changes affect the Visa 189, Skilled Independent, the Visa 190 Skilled Nominated, the Visa 489 Skilled Regional, and several employer-sponsored visa categories. The specific change is this. Occupations classified as professional or managerial roles will now require proficient English as a minimum, which means IELTS 7 in each component or equivalent scores in PTE, TOEFL, or other approved tests. Previously, competent English, which is IELTS 6 in each component, was sufficient for many of these occupations. This change affects hundreds of thousands of potential applicants, and it's going to significantly impact who can and cannot qualify for Australian skilled migration. Why is the government making this change? The official reason is to ensure that skilled migrants have the English language ability necessary to integrate successfully into Australian workplaces and communities. The government points to research showing that higher English proficiency correlates with better employment outcomes, higher earnings, and faster social integration. Critics argue that this change is simply a way to reduce migration numbers by making the requirements harder, but regardless of the motivation, the reality is that you need to meet these requirements if you want to migrate to Australia. If you're currently sitting at IELTS 6 and you were planning to apply in the near future, you now have less than a month to submit your application under the old requirements. If you can't submit before January 1st, you'll need to retake your English test and achieve the higher scores. For many people, jumping from a 6 to a 7 in each component takes significant time and effort. It's not just about studying more, it's about achieving a level of fluency and accuracy that only comes with consistent practice and often professional coaching. My advice if you're in this situation? First, check whether your occupation is affected by these changes. Not all occupations require the higher scores. Second, if you are affected and you're close to being ready to apply, consider whether you can submit your expression of interest before January 1st, even if you're not quite ready, just to lock in the current requirements. Third, if you need to improve your English, invest in quality preparation, whether that's online courses, tutoring, or intensive study programs. Don't just keep taking the test, hoping you'll get lucky. Actually improve your skills. The fourth major update concerns regional visa programs, particularly the Visa 489 Skilled Regional Visa. This visa has become increasingly important as the Australian government pushes to distribute migration more evenly across the country rather than having everyone concentrated in Sydney and Melbourne. The latest update is that several regional areas have been reclassified, with some areas that were previously considered regional no longer qualifying for regional visa benefits, while other areas have been added to the regional category. The most significant change is that parts of the Gold Coast in Queensland are no longer considered regional for migration purposes. This affects thousands of people who were planning to use the Gold Coast as their regional area for visa purposes while still enjoying a coastal lifestyle close to major cities. On the flip side, several areas in Victoria and South Australia have been added to the regional category, opening up new opportunities for people willing to live and work in these areas. Regional visas are attractive because they often have lower points requirements, faster processing times, and additional pathways to permanent residency. But they come with obligations. You must live and work in your designated regional area for a specified period, usually 3 years, before you become eligible for permanent residency. If you leave the regional area before completing your obligation, you risk your visa being cancelled and losing your pathway to permanent residency. The government is also cracking down on what they call regional visa fraud, where people claim to be living in regional areas but are actually living in major cities. There have been several high-profile cases of people having their visas cancelled because they couldn't prove genuine residence in their nominated regional area. The message is clear. If you commit to a regional visa, you must genuinely live and work in that region. Don't try to game the system, because the consequences are severe. The fifth update concerns employer-sponsored visas. particularly the Visa 182 Employer Nomination Scheme. Recent processing time data shows that these visas are now being processed significantly faster than they were 6 months ago. Average processing times have dropped from 12 to 18 months, down to 6 to 9 months for most occupations. This is excellent news for people who have secured employer sponsorship and are waiting for their visa to be granted. Why have processing times improved? The Department of Home Affairs has hired additional staff, implemented new digital systems that streamline the assessment process, and prioritized employer-sponsored visas because they directly address Australia's labor shortages. Employers are desperate for skilled workers, and the government recognizes that long visa processing times hurt the economy by preventing businesses from filling critical roles. If you're currently in Australia on a temporary visa and you have the opportunity to secure employer sponsorship, this is a very attractive pathway right now. Employer-sponsored visas lead directly to permanent residency. They don't require state nomination or points testing, and with current processing times being relatively fast, you could have your permanent residency within a year of applying. The sixth update is about visa application fees. And unfortunately, this news isn't positive. The government has announced that visa application fees will increase by 4.7% from July 1, 2026. This follows increases in previous years, and it means that Australian visa applications are among the most expensive in the world. The Visa 189 application, for example, currently costs over 4,000 Australian dollars for the primary applicant, and with the increase, it will be over $4,200. When you add in costs for dependents, English tests, skills assessments, medical examinations, and police checks, the total cost of applying for Australian permanent residency can easily exceed $10,000. This is a significant financial barrier, especially for applicants from developing countries where these fees represent many months or even years of salary. The government justifies the high fees by saying they cover the cost of processing applications and that Australia doesn't want migrants who can't afford to support themselves. Critics argue that the fees are excessive and discriminatory, creating a system where only wealthy migrants can afford to apply. What can you do about this? Start budgeting now for your application costs. Don't wait until you're ready to apply to start thinking about money. Calculate all the costs involved, not just the visa fee, but all the associated expenses, and start saving systematically. If you're planning to apply after July 2026, factor in the fee increase to your budget. The seventh update concerns partner visas, which allow Australian citizens and permanent residents to sponsor their foreign partners for permanent residency. Recent data shows that partner visa applications have reached record levels, with over 100,000 applications in the queue waiting to be processed. Processing times have blown out to 2 to 3 years for many applicants, causing enormous stress and separation for couples who are waiting for their visas. The government has announced measures to try to reduce this backlog, including hiring more staff and implementing new risk assessment tools that allow low-risk applications to be processed faster. However, they've also announced stricter requirements for proving genuine relationships. Couples will now need to provide more evidence of their relationship, including evidence covering a longer time period, more detailed statutory declarations from friends and family, and more proof of shared financial responsibilities and shared life. This is in response to concerns about fraudulent relationship visas, where people enter fake relationships purely to obtain Australian residency. While genuine couples shouldn't have any problem providing evidence of their relationship, the additional requirements do mean more work, more documentation, and more scrutiny of your private life. If you're planning to apply for a partner visa, start gathering evidence of your relationship now. Don't wait until you're ready to apply. Photographs, messages, joint bills, travel records, anything that demonstrates you're in a genuine, ongoing relationship. The eighth and final major update concerns citizenship processing times and requirements. For permanent residents who are eligible to apply for Australian citizenship, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that processing times have improved significantly, with most applications now being processed within 6 to 9 months compared to 12 to 18 months previously. The bad news is that the citizenship test has been made more difficult, with new questions about Australian values, Australian history, and responsibilities of citizenship. The pass mark for the citizenship test remains 75%, but many applicants report that the new questions are more complex and require more detailed knowledge of Australian society and government. If you're preparing to take the citizenship test, don't underestimate it. Study the official resource book thoroughly, take practice tests, and make sure you genuinely understand the material rather than just memorizing answers. Now let me pull all of this together and give you some practical advice on what you should do with all this information. First, if you're planning to apply for any Australian visa in the near future, stay informed about changes. Immigration policy is constantly evolving, and what's true today might not be true in 3 months. Subscribe to Aussieglobalaffairs, follow the Department of Home Affairs website, and consider engaging a registered migration agent who can provide personalized advice for your situation. Second, be strategic about your pathway. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to Australian migration. The best pathway for you depends on your occupation, your qualifications, your age, your English ability, your financial situation, and your personal circumstances. Don't just blindly pursue the visa that someone else used successfully. Make sure you're pursuing the pathway that makes sense for your unique situation. Third, maximize your points if you're pursuing a points-tested visa. Look at every category where you can gain points and think about whether there are realistic ways to improve your score. Can you improve your English from competent to proficient and gain extra points? Can you get additional qualifications? Can you gain more work experience in your occupation? Can you study in Australia to get Australian qualification points? Every additional point increases your chances of success. Fourth, if you're in Australia on a temporary visa, leverage that to your advantage. Your Australian experience is valuable, whether it's work experience, qualifications, or simply being on shore when invitation rounds happen. Don't waste your time in Australia. Use it strategically to position yourself for permanent residency. Fifth, be patient but proactive. Australian migration takes time. Very few people get permanent residency quickly, unless they're in extremely high-demand occupations. But while you're being patient, you should also be proactive. Keep improving your profile, keep gaining experience, keep networking, keep learning about opportunities. The worst thing you can do is sit passively waiting and hoping something will happen. Sixth, be financially prepared. Australian migration is expensive. There's no getting around that. Make sure you have the financial resources, not just for visa fees, but for living expenses if you're coming to Australia, for English tests and skills assessments, for migration agent fees if you're using one, and for unexpected costs that inevitably arise. Seventh, understand that rejection is possible and have a backup plan. Not everyone who applies for an Australian visa will be successful. Points cutoffs might rise, your occupation might be removed from the list, your health or character might not meet requirements, or you might simply be unlucky with timing. Have a plan B. What will you do if your Australian migration dream doesn't work out? Having alternatives doesn't mean you're not committed. It means you're realistic and prepared. Eighth and finally, focus on quality over speed. Some people try to rush their application, submitting before they're really ready because they're afraid of policy changes or they're just impatient. This often leads to rejections or requests for further information that delay the process. It's almost always better to take the time to prepare a high-quality, complete, well-documented application than to rush and submit something that's not quite ready. Let me share a quick story that illustrates these principles. I know a software engineer from India, let's call him Raj, who started his Australian migration journey 3 years ago. Initially, he was only at 70 points, not enough to get invited for a visa 189. Instead of just waiting and hoping, Raj was strategic. He retook his English test and improved from competent to proficient, gaining 5 points. He completed a professional year program in Australia, gaining 5 more points. He gained additional work experience, earning more points. And he studied for and obtained a NSW translation credential, gaining 5 more points. Over 3 years, Raj increased his points from 70 to 90, and in the most recent invitation round, he received his invitation. Raj's story shows that success in Australian migration goes to people who are strategic, persistent, patient, and willing to invest in themselves. He didn't sit around complaining that the points were too high or that the system was unfair. He looked at the system as it existed, identified ways he could improve his profile, and methodically worked toward his goal. That's the attitude that leads to success. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today here at Aussie Global Affairs. These updates are complex, they're constantly changing, and it can feel overwhelming to try to keep up with everything. That's exactly why this channel exists, to be your trusted source for clear, accurate, comprehensive information about Australian immigration. We cut through the confusion, we break down the complexity, and we give you information you can actually use to move forward with your Australian dreams. If you found this video valuable, and I really hope you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to Aussie Global Affairs, and turn on notifications so you never miss an important update. Australian immigration policy changes frequently, and you need to stay informed if you want to succeed. Share this video with anyone you know who's interested in migrating to Australia, whether they're just starting to think about it or they're deep in the application process. The more people who have access to accurate information, the better. And if you have questions, if something wasn't clear, if you want me to cover a specific topic in a future video, please leave a comment below. I read every single comment, and your questions help me understand what information you need most. This channel is here to serve you, and your feedback makes it better. Remember, migrating to Australia is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. It's an investment of time, money, and emotion. It's a leap into the unknown. But for millions of people, it's been absolutely worth it. Australia offers an incredible quality of life, amazing opportunities, a safe and stable society, and a welcoming multicultural community. Yes, the pathway is challenging, but the destination is worth it. Stay informed, stay strategic, stay persistent, and never give up on your dreams. Here at Aussie Global Affairs, we're with you every step of the journey. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next update.